Hello and welcome to the Prospect Blueprint. I'm Kelly Kleiman, and my battery mate, as usual, is Mr. Rick Dempsey, 24-year MLB vet and fan favorite with the Twins, Yankees, Brewers, Dodgers, and the Orioles. And oh yes, in 1983, he won the MVP for the Baltimore Orioles in the World Series. How about them apples, right? So there's all sorts of audience participation and clapping going on in the background. You don't know it, but you will after I edit this. Hi, Rick. How you doing, man?
I am doing well, man. It was a good day out on the golf course earlier this morning, and so I'm ready to do this show, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. And we got a great coach at the other end here today, so I'm anxious to ask him a few questions.
Well, let's meet our coach today. He is Coach Johnny Cardenas of Stephen F. Austin. He's the head skipper of the Lumberjacks, one of my favorite Texas schools, and he's up against some super stiff recruiting competition every year, but this one is different. We have the portal, a great equalizer for some programs, but a risk as well. You may lose as much as you gain, but with every college free agency now a reality, you may get a second chance at a guy you once tried to recruit. Coach Johnny Cardenas, Texas born and bred, welcome.
Thank you for having me, guys. Glad to be on and really excited to talk some baseball with you guys.
Let's do it. Here to take the first swing, Mr. Rick Dempsey.
Well, Coach, you got to tell me, because one of the things, I would love to coach baseball, but college coaching just scares the hell out of me because I don't know a thing about recruiting. So I want to know how well, I've heard every coach that we've done just nightmares about recruiting and has so many people working for him. What's going on with you? Has your recruiting process been pretty good this summer so far?
It's been pretty good. I will tell you that the landscape of recruiting, as you guys well know, has just really, really changed dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years. And so what you thought you knew about recruiting and what you thought was successful about recruiting over the last, 7, 8 years has totally changed in these last 4 or 5 years. And that everything has been turned upside down as far as, incoming freshmen, guys who are in the portal, guys who are on your team. I think you spend as much time now recruiting guys on your team to come back as you do recruiting guys to replace those guys who are departing.
Yeah.
Throw in there the pandemic and roster, guys, NCAA allowing those guys to come back for another year. It just really created a bottleneck and has really created a lot of new and different challenges in the recruiting process.
What events do you prioritize, and what is the criteria that you use to determine where you're going to recruit talent? Is it PG? Is it travel tourneys, college summer leagues for Portland and JUCO? And do you come out west and recruit Arizona and Cali guys?
Yeah, so let me go back and let me kind of start from the fall. And what you do and what we will be doing this coming fall, that's when we're really, really hard on the junior college guys, because we get a chance to see those guys in games. We get a chance to see those guys play in showcases, those kinds of things, because there are like the Texas JUCOs and the Kansas JUCOs, they have these showcases where all of their top sophomores come in, run 60s, they eval them, and that's really the best events for us, because you can get all of the good guys there in one fell swoop, and really all the guys who are going to be Division I eligible at the end of that semester. So that is our big events in the fall. Now, once we transition into spring, it makes it more difficult, and so you're kind of watching as you can guys who may be on your list that are high school guys and those kinds of things. But that's always very difficult because, as you guys know, you show up and you watch a kid play, and he may get walked 3 times because he's the best player on the other team. That's the kid you're there to watch. So that makes it more difficult. So in spring, there's not a whole lot of recruiting that goes on. It's more of what we're doing with our team, trying to win championships, those kinds of things. And then once we get to the summer, man, it is every weekend in the summer. And we're fortunate enough to live in an area where we're 2.5 hours from Dallas, 2.5 hours from Houston, and you can catch a tournament there every weekend if you so choose.
Hey, John, I know a big part of your job is knowing these top prospects. When you start to talk to them, but the hard part is to convince them as a player to choose the Lumberjacks. I mean, how do you go about doing that when you got a lot of competition? You're up against the SEC, Big 12, the ACC teams like that. You've got to be a magician when you're talking to these guys.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And let me say this. I think the key is to find guys who kind of fit the niche that we're in. I mean, if it's a guy that's not to say we don't go after the top guys, because we always go top for the top guys. I mean, I think I've always told my guys that you shoot your shot at those guys, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's much like going into a bar at night, in the evening and seeing a good-looking girl and thinking she's out of your league and not talking to her. Hey, man, shoot your shot. You never know what will happen. And so that's kind of what we tell our recruiters is we want to make sure that you're getting out there and you're recruiting the top guys as much as you can. But once we figure out the guys who could possibly be guys for us, we kind of pride ourselves on, we're a mid-major. And so we're not going to get those SEC kids. We're not going to get those Big 12 kids or Pac-12 guys. You're going to get those second-tier guys. And the way we look at it is we try to see something in there that we know that we can develop, whether it be a command, a guy, hey, man, he throws really hard, but he doesn't have great command. Well, maybe that's a guy that we can feel, with some adjustments that we can help him with his command. Or maybe it's a guy with great command and can throw all 4 pitches or 3 pitches for strikes. And we think, hey, we can get him to a velo that we feel could be competitive. And that would be just through strength training and those kinds of things. And so I think what you have to do more than anything is you have to bring those kids in on a visit, and you really have to make sure that they fit with what's going on here. Because we're a small school in the middle of the Piney Woods. And it's not, if you're a big city kid and you're looking for bigger, better, facilities and a grand population, this is not the place for you. But if you like to hunt, fish, and you like to be a dirtbag baseball player, this is probably the best place for you, because that's how we sell it.
Coach John, you just mentioned a little bit about the showcases, and I just wanted to know what your real feelings were on it, because I know they're sprouting up all over everywhere.
Yes, sir.
And sometimes it's pretty tough to read the talent of a player, in that short period of time. So what's your feeling about that?
I like them. I like them, and for the reason mainly that I discussed earlier. So, like, if I go watch a high school kid, like we have a kid that we've tagged as that's going to be our next shortstop, and we go watch him play a high school game, and he's playing a local high school that is not very talented, and he's the best player on his team. We may not see him field a ground ball or get a productive at bat the entire game. So with the showcases, it's a little bit more, those kids compete against each other a little bit more. And so we do like that, because you can kind of catch those kids, 5, 6, 7 kids all in one spot. But I will tell you that it has gotten a little out of hand as far as how much kids are not playing with their local teammates. And I think that to me speaks to the issue of why high school baseball is not as fruitful and not as good as maybe some of these showcases, is because these kids are all going out playing all over the United States with guys who they will not play with on their high school team. When you or I played, hey man, you played in the summer with the guys who were on your high school team, and they were there on your little league team. They were there on your high school team. They're on your Babe Ruth team. You just knew who they were. And so you developed a little bit of team chemistry, a little team camaraderie. And that's the one thing that I think that the showcases are causing people to miss a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of smaller D1 teams are relatively strapped for funds, and you guys tend to recruit regionally, which leaves a lot of potential talent out there that you don't have any real access to or limited access to, which beckons the question, what means do you have to identify talent that falls outside of your travel area that might not only be a game changer for your program, but maybe even secure you a contract extension for years?
100%. What you have to do is you can't be everywhere all the time. And so you have to have guys that you trust, that you have complicit faith in, that they are going to look out for you, for players in your best interest. So for example, one of my good friends, Raul Ibanez, is a guy in Florida. He's a longtime major leaguer. I played with him. We have a great relationship. And if he calls me about a guy, I know that kid can probably play. And so rather than me having to find out about him by flying out there, he tells me about him, and then we can fly out there and kind of kick the tires and kind of see if he's the right fit. We also have, scouts on the West Coast. I think you have to have those connections because again, you can't be everywhere all the time. And if you have those connections and you have guys you can trust, that makes it a little more, feasible to cover the United States. But I will tell you that we have to own, as a small school, we have to own our regional area. I mean, we have to be big in the regional area, because then it becomes a situation where no one from your area wants to come play, because they get the idea that, hey, he's not going to take any local kids. He's just going to recruit from far off. So there's no need in even being interested in that school.
Yeah. It feels like there needs to be a mix. There's some colleges out there that don't understand that, and their programs actually suffer because they fall under the pressure of having to recruit locally. One comes to mind, which I won't even mention, but I happen to have noticed that there's nobody outside of Ohio that they were really recruiting. It's like, that's why they're not doing really well. Whereas Michigan, in the same division, was recruiting all over the country because they have people that they trust on the West Coast, South, East, and they're bringing in some talent. Let's discuss the paradigm shift that's taking place in college sports, and it's the transfer portal and it's the NIL. How does that affect your program as kids not only chase dollars outside of just scholarships, but they're willing to bail if they don't get playing time on the outset? So you've got the portal. Now you've got the potential for NIL having a major impact. Are you more inclined to scan JUCOs for more experienced players who could step right in? They have some accomplishment and they're much less of a portal bail risk than anybody else?
100%. And let me add to those two factors that you had, the NIL and the portal. The third leg of that, and a leg that a lot of people don't like to talk about, is the APR, which is the NCAA's way of making me responsible for the transfers in and out of my program. Okay. So every year you have to have a certain percentage of your guys have to be eligible, and you have to retain those guys. And for every guy that you don't retain, or every guy that's not eligible, you lose percentage points. When you lose a certain number of percentage points, well, then you lose practice time, you lose scholarship money, all these things come into play. So for me, that's really the third leg of this whole issue that has caused a dramatic shift, or paradigm shift, as you put it, in our sport. Now, I'll go back and talk to the point of the portal. The problem that I have with the portal is the NCAA is allowing these kids to transfer free of charge and holding me accountable for their decisions. That's the issue that I think all Division I coaches have an issue with. Okay. For example, I have 35 guys on my roster. Okay. I'm going to have 5 guys who transfer out because they didn't play. And I understand that. Hey, that's part of the game. A guy does not get his playing time. He doesn't get his reps. He doesn't feel comfortable. He becomes disassociated with the program. He's going to move on. I understand that. Okay. I'm also going to lose my top 5 players because, me being a mid-major, I'm going to have Big 12, Pac-12, SEC schools calling this guy, asking him through roundabout people whether or not he'd be interested in transferring. And those kids believe that there is greener grass somewhere else. So I'm going to lose my bottom 5. I'm going to lose my top 5. So what I'm left with is that middle part that I have to really, really develop to keep that program and that culture the way it needs to be. Made it increasingly difficult for us to recruit at the mid-major level, because I can't, in Nacogdoches, Texas, man, there are not, I'm sure this is not groundbreaking news, but there are not great boosters as far as, hey, we're going to give you $10,000 a year to come in and play baseball here. That's not going to happen in Nacogdoches, Texas. It could happen in some of the big SEC schools and some of the Big 10 schools, Pac-12, what have you, but it's not going to happen in mid-majors. And so we are losing some of our guys with the idea that they can go somewhere else and it's going to be better financially, it's going to be better playing wise, and it's going to be better for them as far as their move to try to move to the next level.
Let me jump on that real quick, Rick, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
That's why I after speaking to as many coaches that we have had so far in the last week or so, that I think that the JUCO route's the best, because I think once the NIL money starts kicking in, these kids are going to be less likely to jump, especially if they're making money. So you've got your SEC, you've got your Big Ten, ACC. Guys are going to be throwing money at these guys. They're going to be sticky players, right? So everybody who falls in between, it's going to be tougher to break into those rosters.
Yes.
And I think that you're going to be in better shape. But the way it's taking form is really, really interesting right now. But that's sort of my take on it. I think JUCO is going to play a much more important role in developing players and getting players who are hungry. And I'll throw this out as well. I saw a lot of baseball this summer, and I'll tell you that these, the Big Five guys, the Pac-12, all these guys, they're good players. Maybe they have some of the better arms, but the degree of difference between the players is minimal. In many instances, I've seen some amazing players who are playing in some small schools on the East Coast, some from Florida, some from California, Texas, and you're wondering, this guy could play at UCLA. I watched UCLA this year. They didn't blow me away. In fact, quite the contrary. But that's just my take on it. I now defer to my partner. I've talked enough.
100%. Now, let me add to you guys, how many? I think they did. They talked about it last week, maybe, that there are 3,500 players in the transfer portal right now, close to 3,500, and there are only 500 spots available. So do the math. I mean, you don't have to be very good at math to figure out those numbers are not going to work.
No. And then what does it do to the high school kids or the kids who are getting out of JUCO now? It's everyone who was recruited 3 and 4 years ago, 2, 3, 4 years ago. They're getting recruited again. They're back out there again. It's insanity right now.
Yeah, it is. It is.
John, is it true you got to graduate at cum laude from college in order to get this coaching job, or what?
Sometimes it feels like it. Sometimes
all that you're dealing with. I mean, before you even go out on the field, you got to be exhausted.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's a lot of things.
Let's talk a little bit about your ball club. Maybe some of the good players that are coming back, and how are you recruiting? And you got to figure a way to get more wins. That's the main thing that every coach deals with at this time of the season.
Yes, sir.
Give me an update on that.
Yeah. So, one of the top returners that we have is a guy that was played outfield for us last year and was a very good hitter for us. His name's Clayton Laronje. He's a Canadian. And we got him via the JUCO route, just because one of those showcases in Kansas, we saw him, we liked him, and we brought him in. He's been a great player for us. He's had a phenomenal summer up in Edmonton when he went back home for the summer, and we expect him to come in and be a big-time force for us this year. We think he's one of the better players in our conference. Some of the new guys that we've signed a guy by the name of Rogers out of Barton Community College in Kansas, and we really think he's going to be top notch. I mean, we felt very fortunate that he didn't get drafted. I'm sure he didn't feel fortunate that he didn't get drafted, but we felt pretty fortunate that he didn't get drafted because we really thought going through half the course of the year that we were gonna lose him. We also have an outfielder from Hines College named Carr, who's going to play in the outfield for us. And once he comes off of knee surgery, we think he's going to be really good. We had a huge turnover from our roster last year, but I mean, really, as far as on the mound guys who were returning, we've got a couple of guys, and Joe Richter, who's another junior college guy by way of Barton College and Northeast College up in Colorado. So we kind of feel like he's going to be a guy that can come in and really do a good job for us and really stem the tide of what we had last year. And last year, our ERA was terrible. We didn't do a very good job preparing our pitchers, and we really feel like he's going to be a guy that can come in and kind of stabilize some of that.
So positionally,
you mentioned the name a few seconds ago, Raul Ibanez. And he's a guy who really helps you a little bit.
Yes, sir.
I got to tell you a story about this, because when I was doing the television show for the Orioles a few years ago, the Yankees were going into a one-game playoff against the Baltimore Orioles. Buck Showalter was the manager.
Yes, sir.
So every night I'd look at the highlights of the Yankees, and Russell Martin and Ibanez were hitting game-winning home runs almost every night. And I'm going, what is going on with these two guys? Well, I started watching the clips, and, being as I'm a catcher, and you know what I mean, you pick up things about these hitters. both of those guys and Raul Ibanez was not swinging at a breaking ball or a changeup or a curveball, anything. They strictly looked fastball every single pitch. And I'm saying the pitchers were dumb enough to keep throwing to him. So I go to Showalter and I say, Buck, I said, listen, here's a little bit of info that's going to help you in this playoff game. He said, what is that? He says, Ibanez and Russell Martin are only swinging at fastball. They take every breaking ball, even with 2 strikes. He says, oh, okay, I'll keep that in my little book of notes and tell them when we get to that game. I said, okay, who came up in the 9th inning and hit the game-tying home run? Raul Ibanez on a fastball.
No way.
There you go. And then we went into extra innings, and who came up and had a walk-off home run with a home run? Raul Ibanez on a fastball. So, I mean, you obviously have a pretty good player there that knows the game of baseball, but I just remembered Raul Ibanez and Martin only looking fastball. So that was a mistake on the part of the Orioles right there, not to know that little bitty note.
There you go. Hard-headed pitchers, man. Hard-headed pitchers.
Everybody thinks they've got something better than the last guy.
No doubt. Hey, he's going to do me that way. Exactly.
Ibanez was a really good hitter. So was Russell Martin, both great ball players. Well, Coach Johnny Cardenas, Stephen F. Austin, he's a skipper of the Lumberjacks. I want to thank you for joining us. Good luck out there. Let's stay in touch. And that's about all the time we have. Rick, any parting words for Coach?
Well, I just tell you, of all the coaches that we're interviewing, they all have this passion for the game, and I can see it in John at the same time, too. They really care about winning the fundamentals. They care about making players better. And when they're leaving colleges, they want to see them go to the big leagues and have a good career. But, man, I'll tell you what, your passion for the game, John, stands out. I hope you keep it, man, and good luck to you.
Rick, I appreciate it, man, and it's been an honor talking with you and Kelly, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Anytime you guys want to talk, man, I'm always good to talk baseball.
Sounds great. Well, that's about all the time we have for tonight. I hope everybody has a great weekend. From all of us here at the Prospect Blueprint, keep your chin in and your eyes on the ball. We'll see you soon.